You're going to showboat, knock down the shot.
For what his value is, he doesn't equate to winning basketball.
When you're talking about the greatest of greats, that's what you have to do. You have to nitpick.
We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Tee 'em Up podcast. We are back. Jarrett with my partner. Got some good news going on this week. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. All things considered, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a fun week of NBA basketball, a lot going on, and my Bulls and your Heat are right now first in the East, kind of duking it out, seeing who's going to be the coach of the All-Star game, which we should find out tonight. After the Bulls-Sixers game.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking there of the All-Star game, that kind of leads us into our first big news is the NBA announced the reserves this week for the East and West for the upcoming All-Star game. And we just kind of thought we'd take a look at the selections, kind of break everything down. So I'm just going to start here in the East, just kind of list everything off. The reserves were named as James Harden, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine, Fred VanVleet, Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, and Darius Garland. So, Jarrett, what's your takeaway from these guys from the East?
The East had two misses. There were two misses. I completely agree with everyone else that's on there. And it was kind of funny when I saw the initial tweet. I think Shams tweeted it out. I don't know why. I was expecting to see like Zach LaVine named as the first reserved. And then I saw a couple names that weren't his. And I freaked out for a second. Like, did LaVine not get picked? And then I saw it. I'm like, all right, calm down. Anyway, my two guys I'd swap out. I'd swap out Chris Middleton and Fred VanVleet. I wouldn't have them as all-stars this year.
Oh, really?
Really?
So who's filling those spots then?
Jarrett Allen, and I can't believe for the life of me I am saying this. I would have had LaMelo Ball. I'm not a big LaMelo Ball fan, but I would have had him over Fred VanVleet. And then Jarrett Allen, of course, replacing Chris Middleton.
Huh. Man, that's interesting. Well, the crazy thing is I disagree with one of them that you said, and it's probably not the one that you would think. I disagree with the Jarrett Allen one.
Really?
I really do. So I'm just kind of going to get into it. I made a TikTok this week and it got a little bit of traction on there. And I just want to kind of say it on here. I think us as NBA fans and NBA media and everything like that, we need to stop with this whole all-star snubs thing. Every year it's the same story, man. It's the same. Oh, this guy got snubbed. This guy deserved to be on there. What's like, there's 12 spots in each conference. There's going to be good players that are having good seasons going to get left off. That's just the nature of the game. And that's what kind of makes an all-star recognition so valuable is it's not just like, hey, we need to expand it to 15 to 20. Because then it's like, well, he was an all-star, but he was the 20th best player in the conference that year. Like you have to set a limit to these things. So I understand people's favorite players they want to get in. Obviously, you wanted to see Zach LaVine get in, and he definitely deserved it. Don't get me wrong. But I was really excited. Personally, my biggest note was to see Darius Garland get the nod. I think he definitely deserved that.
See that.
I was very excited to see that. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers needed to have some sort of recognition, some sort of representation on that team. I would have removed Chris Middleton as well. That is the only change I would have done. I would have removed Chris Middleton. And I would have been okay with either LaMelo Ball or Miles Bridges. I would have been okay with either of those guys.
It would have been Miles Bridges, I think, then.
Yeah.
Because Middleton's a forward in the voting, right?
Definitely. But the way I kind of looked at it, and I can't remember who said this, and I'd want to give credit to it, but it was one of the national – I think it actually might have been Draymond Green on actual TNTs when they were kind of announcing everything. And I agree with it. It was – he thinks Chris Middleton – LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges – split votes from each other. They kind of worked against each other because I think with where the Hornets are, especially in the Eastern Conference, they deserve to have some representation on there. I think Chris Middleton definitely, if you left him off, I don't think there's a lot of people besides Bucks fans that are saying he deserves to be an all-star. So I think that's kind of the main one you could get away with. And who were you removing for Jarrett Allen? I forget.
Well, I was removing Chris Middleton for Jarrett Allen. I'm removing Fred VanVleet for LaMelo Ball.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It's close, but I just think LaMelo's affects his team more.
I get you.
Because in my personal opinion, I think the Toronto Raptors have more guys that are going to make your team a winning team than the Hornets, whereas LaMelo Ball has essentially come in and changed that franchise overnight. Sure, Miles Bridges has gotten better this year. Sure, they have a savvy veteran like Gordon Hayward, but top to bottom, I think that Raptors seems better. And there's not a huge difference with LaMelo Ball's and Fred VanVleet's stats. I think VanVleet's averaging like 21 and 7, but then LaMelo's averaging 19 and then nearly 8 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really close, but I want to give my tip of the hat to
yeah.
Oh, I'm not wearing a hat today. That's weird. But my hypothetical tip of the hat to LaMelo Ball.
I see where you're going. I see where you're going. I would give my edge to Fred VanVleet because I'd also, I guess if I'm leaning the way that I'm leaning, if I just had like it was my say and I'm taking out Chris Middleton, I guess I'm putting in Miles Bridges. So I guess I'm still leaving out LaMelo Ball. But the way I look at it, man, Fred VanVleet, I don't think the Toronto Raptors are. I mean, right now they're the 7th seed in the East, only a half game behind Brooklyn, which we'll touch on Brooklyn a little bit later. What's going on with them? But I think Fred VanVleet's really been the driving force of that team. I think he's really kind of taken on that leadership role. Pascal Siakam really hasn't become what we thought he was going to be just a few years ago. We looked at him as like a Giannis Antetokounmpo type player. Like he was on that trajectory and he really hasn't reached up to it. But yeah, I think overall there's not a lot. I mean, obviously a couple changes for you, one change for me. But I'm not going to lose sleep over this whole snub thing, man. I think us as NBA media, we need to get better at that. It's just, hey, these guys deserve it. Obviously, there's a few guys. I mean, does anybody really think LaMelo Ball is not going to make an all-star team in his career?
Oh, he will eventually.
Yeah. I think these guys will have a shot. And that's the thing with like guys like Darius Garland. Like I was really excited to see him get that opportunity because I feel like a lot of the times players like him and on the team that's having a surprising season might get overlooked. And I was glad to see that he didn't. So in the East, not too much to complain about there.
I will have to say I fully expect Jared Allen to be an all-star. Probably that 13th guy with KD not playing. I think that's probably who they're going to go with, unless Adam Silver wants Hornets to be represented and he chooses Miles Bridges. Mm-hmm. But I still think it should be Jared Allen.
Yeah. So that decision is Silver, right? Correct.
Yeah, he's making the reserves decisions.
Definitely. So moving on to the West, and the reserves were announced as Luka Doncic, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Draymond Green, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. So Jared, what did you think of the West?
I agree with that. I don't have really anyone in mind I would change. Draymond Green has announced that he's not going to be playing in the All-Star game, I believe.
Yeah, so he made that,
I'm trying to think off the top of my head who I would swap in his place, but I really can't think of anybody.
And the thing is, because he's a forward, people could call me a homer, but I guess Anthony Davis. I know he hasn't played a lot. I know, I get it, but I'm just saying if you're going to the next best forward in the league, a lot of the best forwards are already up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. The forward position is not deep. I mean, you don't have Paul George, you don't have Kawhi Leonard.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of guys missing. I guess in theory you could go with Anthony Davis. I'm just trying to run through the teams in my head right now.
It's not an easy one. There's not a lot of guys that, especially in that forward position. I mean, there's a lot of guards that you could kind of fit in there, but that's the problem.
Oh no, Anthony Edwards is a guard.
He technically kind of plays 3.
That's what I was thinking.
Time.
Like
you could fit in there if you wanted to, and that's kind of the thing where it comes down to is I get it that I like that they changed it so it's not 5 positions anymore. It's just guards and forwards, makes it a little bit easier. But when you're talking about some of these, it does suck. And I think this is the list that it was always going to be in the West. I don't think there's any surprises on this one. I was happy to see Karl Anthony Towns get his nod. I think he definitely deserved that. The 4 guards to me were a lock. Luka, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. Those guys are really hard to argue. I mean, you could make an argument with pretty much any 4 of them, maybe not Devin Booker, to be a starter. Just the guards position is just so hard because there's only 2 positions. And if I could do this without position, I would remove Draymond and I would add in DeJounte Murray. I think DeJounte Murray's had a great year. I know DeJounte Murray's a guard and Draymond's a 4. That's where the problem comes into. Murray's just – I would love to see him get the nod, and that's the problem with guards in the West is there's just so many great ones.
It's always been so good.
It's hard to break through, but Murray's – he's just been great this year, passing, scoring, leading the Spurs. I think it's better for the league to have a rep from, a middle team in that Western Conference than having a 3rd player from one of their best teams in Draymond.
You know who DeJounte Murray, I could see a kind of career trajectory as long as he most likely would stay with the San Antonio Spurs. In
Mhm.
terms of accolades, we might say Mike Conley situation. Mike Conley was a
Yeah.
phenomenal all-star level guard for a number of seasons, never got selected until last season, in a season where DeMar DeRozan definitely should have got his spot in that all-star game, but I think it was kind of like a lifetime achievement all-star selection.
Yeah.
So I'm glad Mike Conley will go down as an all-star player, but last season was not a season. Like, it was a fine season, but he just wasn't, like, I don't know. He shouldn't have been selected.
Yeah.
But
This is just a tough one, man, because the Spurs to me is just kind of overlooked. I mean, obviously
always have been.
They haven't been a great team, obviously, since their dynasty, which they definitely had a dynasty in the NBA. It's just DeJounte Murray. He's the silent killer, man. He just
He's
kind of
really
goes
good.
out there. He's kind of like, he reminds me a lot of a little bit more efficient and less flashy Shea Alexander for OKC Thunder. He's a little bit more efficient, plays obviously under a Popovich. So we know the type of players that he likes to have, especially leading his offense, being that leading point guard he's been great. So if I could make one change, I would love to see DeJounte Murray get the nod. The only problem I run into is obviously I can't kick any of those four guards out. So then I move to Draymond, but obviously the rules are rules. So it's a tough one, man. But I think overall, I love this All-Star game. I think it's going to be cool. We're going to have the draft here coming up soon, which LeBron and KD are going to be picking their teams as the captains. And LeBron's 4-0 as a captain since they kind of changed to this. So we'll see if this is the year that'll finally change it. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a fun time. I know a lot of people look forward to All-Star weekend. So
I'm just happy to see two Bulls in the All-Star game for the first time in like 6 years. Shout out to Jimmy Butler and Pau Gasol.
Yeah, man, I would have loved to see a second Heat player, but obviously Bam Adebayo, he's been injured. I completely respect that. Would love to see a little bit noise about Tyler Hero making the All-Star game, but I understand.
If a couple guards can't play, it wouldn't be far-fetched.
I understand the decision, but I think his play has been fantastic, obviously. But oh man, so that's kind of our coverage there on the All-Star game. Now we want to move on to the next main event that's kind of coming up here in the NBA, and that's the trade deadline. So still a few days away, not too far away at this point, but
my favorite holiday of the
year.
Man.
Rumors have been flying all over the place. And we did have a pretty significant trade go down this week between the Trailblazers and the Clippers. The Blazers sent Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers in exchange for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a second-round pick. So, Jarrett, what does this trade mean for both these teams?
This means that the Clippers are doing two things. A, they're preparing for a potential return for Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, or possibly both players. They're also setting themselves up for next season, as Norman Powell is on a 4-year, $90 million deal. And he's a fantastic piece. He's a solid defensive player, and he can get you some buckets when you need them. So he's a perfect player to put around these guys, where I think we've seen a weaker Clippers bench than we've seen in the past couple of years. It's not like when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George joined the team and they had Lou Will and I think Gallinari might have still been on the team. Like, that was a really solid team they got inserted into. But now a lot of those guys are gone. So I think the Clippers, what they're doing is they're bolstering back up their bench, which they desperately need, and finding some role players that could maybe even start alongside these guys. For the Trailblazers, it's the beginning of the end of the Damian Lillard era, and that trade's clear because obviously nothing they got back equals what they lost in return. I mean, it does clear some cap space because, I mean, we all saw that Powell contract come in this summer. We're like, this is what they're getting for Damian Lillard? Like, really? I don't know if that means that Lillard is moved before the deadline. I don't even know if that's Lillard being moved before the summer. But it definitely spells a change in the Northwest.
Yeah. First off, before I kind of get into my breakdown, I just want to give a shout out to Jerry West, who just continues to be one of the best general managers or front office guys in the league. He stole these players, man. This was
great
ridiculous.
Trade.
For the Clippers, this to me was surprising following that, the announcement, because the announcement I heard is that the team does not expect Kawhi Leonard to be back at all this season. So it was surprising to hear, hey, our best player is not going to be back this season, or we do not expect him to be back this season. And knowing Kawhi Leonard, I think more often than not, he's got a history of coming back late instead of coming back early. He doesn't seem to be the type of guy
I
who's going
don't
to come back.
expect him back.
He's not going to be coming back early from injuries. And also where they currently sit at the West. I know right now they're sitting in a playoff position. They're sitting in that 8th spot, I believe. But this is a steal for the Clippers. You know, they got 2 very solid role players, good on defensive end. They can go get you a bucket. And they gave up a few guys that really weren't contributing at all. I mean, Eric Bledsoe, I think, was averaging like 7 points a game. He was playing maybe 20 minutes a night. Justice Winslow, when he plays, wasn't really giving him much. You know, this, to me, this was a little go for it move to really improve their depth. And I was surprised to see that. And for the Blazers, you're exactly right. This should have been a wake-up call to Damian Lillard. He should have woke up, saw this trade, and really start the gears turning in his mind like, hey, do I need to force my way out of Portland? And I know this is something a lot of NBA fans have wanted to see for a long time. We want to see Damian Lillard contend for a championship. It's just not going to happen in Portland in his time. Damian's made it clear he wants to stay in Portland, wants the front office to build around him. This was a terrible move for the Blazers moving forward. And it seemed like they mortgaged their future while Dame wants to win now. And it doesn't make sense. It's a change in mindset from your star player to what the front office is trying to do. And I don't understand it from their perspective. So Dame, if you're listening, and I seriously doubt that you are, get out of Portland. Like, I hate to see you wasting your prime. No chance to win a championship. And I think Portland fans will understand, man. You'll still be beloved in Portland. You're a legend there. You will be. Everybody wants to see you compete in the NBA, try to win that championship. Just go make your move, because unless you go to the front office and say, trade me, they're never going to do it.
You know what hurts even more for Portland fans? If you think about this trade, Norman Powell was essentially swapped for Gary Trent Jr.
Yeah.
Gary Trent Jr. is balling in
absolutely
Toronto.
Balling.
Insane. And, well, essentially what you have for Gary Trent Jr. is
Eric Bledsoe,
a couple second-round picks, Eric Bledsoe for a season, and
Justice Winslow.
I don't even think Justice Winslow will be on the roster by the end of the season.
Yeah, which I love Justice Winslow, former Miami Heat, but man,
he's had a tough career.
Yeah, I saw a graphic with Gary Trent Jr. how, you know, he had 4 30-point games in his career, and then in the last 2 weeks he's had 5.
Yeah,
like it seems like every night, like all of a sudden Portland's become a team to watch in the Eastern Conference. It's like, wait a minute, Fred VanVleet's now an all-star. Gary Trent Jr. is apparently a 30-point a night guy, which I never saw coming. Now you got Pascal Siakam, who's a third option, it seems like.
The Raptors, there's something about them. It's like a 2K glitch or something, where if like a random low free agent goes to the team, all of a sudden their rating explodes to like an 85 overnight. Like, we saw this happen with Siakam coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet is an all-star now after going undrafted. I mean, I still remember going to Windy City Bulls games, and the Raptors 905 came in, and Fred VanVleet was there, and there was like a crowd of Rockford fans, because he's from Rockford, Illinois, which is not too far away from where I grew up. And like, so that's where this guy started. Now he's an all-star. Toronto's just exceptional at developing talent.
They really are.
I don't know how they do it.
They find these guys, man. I don't know where they get them from.
They just, I mean, look at DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Like they were probably the best backcourt in the NBA that wasn't the Golden State Warriors for a number of years.
Yeah. Toronto's got a great track record at picking up these guys that no one really thinks is going to do anything, making them pop. And I will say Miami with a 2nd-round draft pick is dangerous too, with the guys that they find in the 2nd round.
And the Bulls, shout out Ayo Dosunmu.
Yeah, he's been balling, man. He's been doing.
He's a lottery pick.
Yeah,
he's a lottery pick.
Yeah,
I love it.
Oh man! Aside from what we think Damian Lillard should be doing from now on, with the trade deadline quickly approaching, Jarrett, I'm curious. With all the rumors kind of going around, do you feel this may be the time over these next few days that we'll see big names like Bradley Beal, Ben Simmons, or even Damian Lillard on the move, or is this all just a bunch of rumors?
You asked me this question 5 days ago.
Yeah.
I would say I'm not expecting much from this free agency, but there is a lot of smoke out there, and we may see some fires break out by the time this trade deadline passes. With James Harden and the Nets situation going on, to where the Nets and Sixers are engaging in Ben Simmons talks. We're talking about the Wizards falling apart, where they want to get they're probably going to get rid of Spencer Dinwiddie one way or another.
Yeah.
They keep saying they're committed to Bradley Beal, but let's face it, if this year wasn't working with Bradley Beal, it's never going to work. What do they think is going to happen? I mean, Bradley Beal, he's an exceptional player, but he's not a number one guy. You're not going to win with him. You're not going to compete. It might look nice for a few seconds when you're 10-4 top of the East, but we're long past that. There are a lot of teams that should consider blowing it up this year. I don't know if every one of these is going to happen. Some teams could be playing coy and not leaking to the media what their real plans are. The Wizards are going to make a move. I don't know if it's the Bradley Beal move, which I think they should do.
I hope.
You got the Knicks potentially wanting to get rid of Julius Randle already, because that situation's become bad. That would be like, if they can hold out with Randle for the rest of the season and somehow convince Portland to swap Damian Lillard and maybe they send them Randle and a few other things, that would be ideal for the Knicks, because I know the Knicks want Damian Lillard as bad as they probably want Zion Williamson.
Yeah, Knicks want everybody, man.
Yeah, well, Knicks have always wanted everybody. I mean, if they could, they'd have the 1992 Dream Team on the roster right now. But I think we're going to see the most eventful trade deadline since probably 2015, when we saw a 3-team trade after 3-team trade.
Yeah, it's very possible. Obviously, it's coming up here this week, so we might, who knows, we might have a couple special episodes where things start going crazy. We might hop on here and give you guys some bonus episodes. But Bradley Beal, to me, is just in the same boat as Damian Lillard, man. He's been unexplainably loyal to the Wizards, a team that's really given him no chance to compete for a title. I think it might have even been last year or 2 years ago where he like almost led the league in scoring, or did lead the league in scoring. It's up there with like 31, maybe even 32 points per game. But the only way Beal leaves is if he goes to the front office and requests a trade. And I don't see that happening. You know, I want it to, but I don't think it will. And I've been a proponent for Beal leaving for a few years ago, or since a few years ago. I wanted, and it was a pipe dream, and I thought it was never going to happen. I thought when LeBron and AD were kind of looking, before obviously this whole Russell Westbrook situation, when they were looking for that third guy, and they're like, hey, we're going to trade a bunch of, kind of our younger guys, the Kuzmas, the KCPs. I wanted Bradley Beal. I was like, that's the perfect fit alongside AD and LeBron. Obviously, at the time, Bradley Beal didn't want to get traded. Who knows what the asking price would have been? They probably couldn't fill it anyways. But that was what I thought was going to be the perfect situation.
They traded for the wrong Wizard.
They really did. They traded with the Wizards. They traded for the wrong Wizard. Maybe if they could have thrown in another draft pick or something, they could have got.
No, Taylor Horton-Tucker's way too valuable to get rid of. I mean, obviously they have to keep him. Do whatever you have to do. Move on from Caruso. You have to keep THT.
Yeah.
Very
right now, the third most valuable Laker is Malik Monk, and the fourth one is Austin Reeves. So
who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. But
wild season.
This Simmons to Brooklyn kind of intrigues me, but I think this would make Brooklyn even worse. And I'll touch on this a little bit later. But at this point, I don't really see any of these big names leaving town in the next 4 days. For all I know, we could wake up to a Woj bomb and things could go absolutely crazy, because that's just how things seem to happen during the trade deadline. But right now, if you ask me, I think this is all smoke. I think this is all smoke and mirrors. I don't see Ben Simmons leaving right now. I don't see Damian Lillard leaving right now. Obviously, Damian Lillard being hurt puts a little, wrench into things. And I don't see Bradley Beal leaving. And I don't see James Harden leaving before the trade deadline. I think I see James Harden leaving in free agency after this year.
Yes.
I don't see him leaving before the trade deadline, because I think Brooklyn looks at it as, hey, that's not going to make us better. So I think the league's in a position where the competing teams like what they have, and they will look to add a lot of solid role players, but I don't think they want to disrupt kind of their main chemistry with the addition of new stars. That's just how I see this trade deadline going, unfortunately, which doesn't make the big headlines, but that's just kind of the way that I see it unfolding. Oh, man. So after an eventful game last night, so we're recording this here on Sunday, so a Saturday night game, the Lakers got a much-needed win over the Knicks in overtime. But, Jarrett, I kind of took a step back, and I wanted to put this Lakers season into perspective for everybody out there. And a lot of people have seen it as pretty much of a dud so far, but I have kind of an interesting take on the Lakers that I kind of wanted to share with you and kind of get your opinion.
Go for it.
I don't think the Lakers should have ever been considered title favorites. I think the media carved this title into them while looking at the names on the roster and not the players that they had on the roster. The level of expectation every year with the team containing LeBron James for the past 15 years or so has always been championship or bust. That's what we expect from LeBron, especially a team that he has a large part in controlling kind of the makeup of the team. This has been magnified by him being a Los Angeles Lakers. And to me, the Lakers roster-wise is a slightly worse team than the LA Clippers roster besides their top two players. And we saw that just a few nights ago when, LeBron was out. Obviously, Paul George and Kawhi were out. The Clippers, they just looked better overall, like they had a deeper bench. But we always expect LeBron to compete. That's the respect that we always give to him. I don't think this team has been a complete failure. I think they're a team that has had a lot of offseason additions, and their main players haven't been healthy. And I think we forget that and don't really use that as, it's LeBron. I don't care. He should be at the top of the conference. They haven't been healthy. Even when LeBron's been playing, he hasn't had his second best player, and that's just fact. They have not played together. That's it. They're not a bottom tier team with this geriatric players that can no longer play. I get it. They're the oldest roster in the NBA. I think the media is overreacting to this Lakers season, and barring the health of LeBron and AD come playoff time, if this team is able to make it to the playoffs, I guarantee that no team besides maybe the Suns are going to feel great about a matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers, all health considered. Given their health and new additions, I think it hasn't been a complete failure. And in fact, I think the way that they look at it internally and with the guys in that locker room, they feel that they're right on track. So what say you?
I understand where you're coming from, but even though I was kind of early in the season or before the season started, I was kind of in the camp where it was like, okay, I don't think the Westbrook fit's going to work. I didn't think it'd be this bad, but I was expecting more on the Westbrook side of things not to work. But to me, the team has been more dysfunctional beyond Westbrook. And I think it was fair for people to kind of project the Lakers as a favorite. Clearly in free agency, with the moves they were making, they were loading up because they believed if we load up this roster, we're going to contend. Now, I'm not saying that it was some of the best moves because clearly like a lot of older players leads to a lot of missed games. We're even seeing this with LeBron, which is there's no, I can't even come up with the words for it. You're just not used to seeing LeBron out this much. And the way I look at it is you saw the Suns coming into the season. Still, some people were still not convinced that them going to the finals was what should have happened. People were like, oh, the injuries to Kawhi, the injuries to the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell. So we know the Suns are a legit team.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no debate about it. You look at the Warriors coming into the season. We didn't expect the emergence of Jordan Poole. We didn't expect Andrew Wiggins to put up an all-star year. And we were kind of out on Draymond Green ever returning to as effective of a player as he was. Like, if I could have put money on Draymond becoming an all-star this year, I wish I could go back and do that now. Because I bet if there were odds on that, it wasn't too good.
What about Wiggins as an all-star starter? Put some money on that one.
Exactly. There you go.
I disagree with it, but yeah, put some money on that one.
Oh, no, he shouldn't be a starter. All-star, sure. Starter, no. The Grizzlies, we did not expect this from Ja Morant. We did not expect this from the Grizzlies team. My God, they're a pleasant surprise. We kind of expected the Jazz to be good, but like, come on, who are you going to take in a LeBron versus the Jazz series? Yeah. And that's another thing. It's hard to doubt a LeBron James-led team. Like you said, no team wants to see the Lakers in the playoffs. The Lakers could be the 8th, 9th, or 10th seed, get through the play-in game. Still no team's going to want to see them, except maybe the Suns. Because
exactly. I think the Suns will feel great if they have a matchup against the Lakers. They have the size, they have the guard play. I like them, obviously, in that matchup. But I think even the Warriors wouldn't feel comfortable against the Lakers.
I was going to say I'm not worried about the Warriors against the Lakers. I think they're fine. Curry has played LeBron several times in the playoffs in his career. This Warriors team is fast. They're athletic. They're healthier. I'm not worried about that. They also have some size too. Kayvon Looney, James Wiseman, if we ever see him touch the court this year, which feels like is never going to happen, but he'll be here. The Warriors and the Suns, I am completely confident in. Now, if let's say the Lakers get up to the 6th seed, which could very well happen, if the Grizzlies stay in the 3rd seed, that's a tough series.
Yeah.
That's a series I'd be willing to put upset money on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Lakers are definitely underwhelmed in expectations, but I completely agree, or I completely understand with some people on why they thought the Lakers were contenders. It's just didn't turn out that way.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm not giving up on them. I'm not going to say I'm not writing them off by any means. No way are they sort of the favorite. And I get it. You're going to say it's LeBron, it's the home. That's who I am. I'm a big fan of LeBron James, and I understand that. But to me, I mean, it always comes to these qualifiers. If LeBron's healthy, if he's on the court and doing what he's doing, and if AD can return to the level that he was playing at in the bubble, and I hate the people out there that are. It seems like every single champion every year, there's a group of people, and it might even be the same group of people that are always trying to put an asterisk on every title because of one person got hurt. And listen, it happens every year. If you won a championship, you deserved it. I don't care. A championship's a championship. And to me, for people to say like, oh, the Lakers, they won the Disney, the bubble title, a championship's a championship.
Everyone was playing under the same rules.
They were the last team standing, and they beat my favorite team, Miami Heat, fair and square in the finals when Jimmy Butler was giving them everything that he could possibly give them. Like, they won it fair and square. But if AD can return to the level he was playing at in that bubble, which since returning from his injury, his last 3 games has looked great. That is the AD the Lakers need to be a contender. With AD playing that way, with LeBron playing that way, heck, if Malik Monk can continue to play the way that he's playing, he's all of a sudden – go ahead.
With Westbrook on the bench in clutch minutes.
Yeah. No, for real. Westbrook can give you minutes, but come those last 6 minutes, I want to see him on the bench as of right now, especially with the confidence that he's shooting. I'd rather have THC. I'd rather have Avery Bradley out there, especially on the defensive end. At least he can knock down a corner 3 every once in a while and not bank it off the backboard and have it fly all the way to the free throw line. But no, I'm not giving up on this team quite yet. I think these last few games, I get it. They lost to the Clippers. Feel like they should have won. They won this game last night, had to go to overtime, tried to give it away there at the end against the Knicks. I'll give it to RJ Barrett. He was balling last night.
Phenomenal.
Looked great. But these Lakers teams, they can go on a run. They definitely could. Their schedule is easing up a little bit. They're starting to have a few more days rest, which is good for LeBron. Obviously, his knee. He talked a little bit after the game. It's just the way the schedule falls. I don't think they play again until Tuesday. So he has basically, 2.5 days to kind of rest everything up, make sure his knee is good to go, which didn't look like it was disrupting him last night at all. But I'm not ready to give up on this Lakers team. I think it's definitely a team that could surprise some guys. I know they're kind of upset, obviously, being a one and done last year when they showed up in the playoffs. Well, kind of in the playoffs, and I don't know, man. I'm not ready to give up yet. I think they could go on a run. I think they have the talent in those 2 top guys where they go into most series. And if you're just going with, well, which team has the best player? If LeBron's there, they still have the best player in the West.
I agree. They're still a threat.
Definitely. Oh, man. So moving on from one of the middle teams there in the West to what used to be the top team in the East just a few weeks ago.
How the turns table.
We got to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, man. The Nets have lost 7 straight now. They've won just 2 of their last 10 games. They sit in the 6th spot in the East, just a half game above the Toronto Raptors. James Harden has been the center of trade rumors with him and Ben Simmons. Kyrie has been almost a non-factor. And Jared, I'm just going to leave it open-ended. What's going on with the Nets?
Well, what's going on right now is they really have none of their stars. I forget if tonight is a home or an away game, which basically that will tell us whether they win or lose tonight, because James Harden's out with another hamstring injury, kind of the same injury he was that was keeping him out in the postseason and early in parts of this season. It's not good. This is the worst case scenario.
They are at Denver today. Just
the 2 at Denver. Okay, so Kyrie will be playing, so they have a chance. Because I'm like, well, we better see 2014 LaMarcus Aldridge or something tonight if the Nets want a chance to not make it 8 in a row. That is losses. It's funny how for both the Nets and the Lakers, it's basically been worst case scenario seasons thus far. And the Nets, clearly KD going down with an injury. I mean, he'll be back at some point, but It's just his team's not going to leave him in a good position for when he comes back. He's probably going to have to do a lot of leg work. And depending on how much time's left, I mean, luckily for now, the East is really close to where they come back or KD comes back and they're like a 7th, 8th seed. The East should still be pretty close to where they knock off a couple of wins and they're back up to one of the higher seeds. I don't think they'll get back up to as high as first, but who knows? It's not looking good. I don't fully believe James Harden is going to get moved because again, I'm seeing reports that the Sixers are asking for way too much to the point where they blatantly want a straight up swap for Harden and Simmons, and don't understand why they would have to give up more for James Harden. I could give you a number of reasons, but I feel like it's kind of redundant to even list any because it's James Harden.
Yeah, the Nets want Maxey. That's really who they want. They want Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
In a trade. They want an addition. Yeah.
Now, if I were the Sixers, if you are going to go for this trade, I'd try to find any reason not to trade Maxey. And offer up whatever picks, whatever other players you have to. If you could somehow swindle the Nets into taking Tobias Harris's contract, go for it. But I don't think the Nets would probably be too interested, especially because they have forwards. So
yeah, I'd try not to trade Maxey. I'd say I would give up Thibault if they would take Thibault.
Yeah,
I'd do that.
I would do.
I like Matisse a lot, but I think. At this point, you'd rather hang on to Maxey. So
yeah, I mean, Matisse Thybulle is going to be a great player in a playoff series on the defensive end. But like, if it's the difference of James Harden's offense and moving on from Ben Simmons and having to give up the defensive powers that Matisse Thybulle possesses, then go for it.
Yeah,
and especially to keep Maxey.
Yeah. Yeah, this is bad, man. And we touched on this a few weeks ago where we were very worried when KD went down. I think we both said we expected this team to drop in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if we expected them to drop this quickly.
This is much worse.
But we both said, hey, this is something to keep your eye on. This is code red. This is quickly becoming a real reason to panic. And my perception of this team, and people will say that, I'm such a LeBron guy that maybe I don't pay respects to Kevin Durant. I'm going to give my props to Kevin Durant right now. My perception of this team is that KD was good enough to carry average play and dysfunction when he's healthy. Like, if anything, this has made me respect Kevin Durant. Like, this team looked like the absolute favorite in Eastern Conference.
MVP vote.
No, it really does. If depending on how much time he comes back in, but he is fantastic. Without KD, this is a mess. Or with KD out, this is a mess. And I don't know if we've touched on this quite a few times, but I was kind of looking at the numbers and everything. Kyrie refusing to get vaccinated has severely hurt this team. Severely.
Yes.
They are 12-13 at home. They're below 500. This is including games with KD. They're 12-13 at home. They're a below average home team with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and supposed to be Kyrie Irving. He severely hurt this team from I'm going to go ahead and say it's selfishness.
Yes.
In my mind. And the fact that it's not even that he's against a vaccine, which almost just makes it worse. He doesn't have an objection.
For many reasons.
He doesn't have an objection to the vaccine, which I get it. People have their own thoughts. He has an objection to the mandate. He said if it wasn't for the mandate, he might be vaccinated. To me, that is absolute selfishness. They are such a top-heavy team. Kyrie is so important to their success. And off the court, I think Kyrie is ridiculous. On the court, he's an all-pro caliber player, and he gets buckets, and that's what they need. And now apparently James Harden's pissed with the front office. And by the time KD gets back, who knows? He could be playing in Philly, and KD is having to deal with Ben layup Simmons and having to deal with everything that he brings to the table. The fact that the media has been so focused on the perceived downfall of the Lakers and not trying to cover what's going on in Brooklyn right now, to me, is alarming. To me, this is worse than LA. LA, at least we have LeBron, we got AD. As long as we're healthy, we're going to be good. This is worse. The Brooklyn is in a complete free fall from the top of the East, and I don't know where the bottom's going to be. I don't know where they're going to bottom out.
Yeah. I will say though about a potential Ben Simmons trade. I think Ben Simmons isn't a bad fit for the Sixers because there's really no floor spacing problems because KD and Kyrie are perimeter players.
Mm-hmm.
So that allows Ben Simmons to be Ben Simmons and not get in a player like Joel Embiid's way. So I'd be really interested to see that fit. I still don't think the trade's going to happen.
No.
But I have to say this situation is so bad. I saw this tweet today, and I for the life of me can't remember who tweeted it, so I can't give the correct credit. But I saw something where it's like KD left the wife who kept things at the house in order for 2 Instagram models. And I think that is the perfect way to describe the situation.
Yeah.
Just it's so bad.
If you look at where the Warriors are right now and you look at what KD left, like to me, like LeBron, people compare LeBron leaving and KD leaving, and because we haven't really up until then seen superstars kind of control their path like these two kind of have. I don't blame KD. I mean, at the time I did. Right now, looking back, he left OKC, and at the time it really sucked. He went to the Warriors, which I thought, man, you're going to such a great team. To me, it says more that he left the Warriors, especially in the situation that they're in now, to go play with Kyrie and just go have fun in Brooklyn. Because it's like, man, you could have really cemented your legacy and continue to climb that ladder of the best players to ever do it. And to me, this is a big, like, hey, he chose not to play with structure. He chose not to play with champions. He chose to go be the number one guy, even though he was the number one guy in the Warriors. And shout out to Steph Curry for kind of taking that step back. But this is glaring. Like this is a problem. And when you're starting to nitpick, that's going to be a black mark on his resume.
I mean, it kind of feeds into the narrative that KD's kind of his own worst enemy, because I mean, he wasn't completely happy in Golden State because he just pays too much attention to social media.
Yeah.
I mean, people telling him, oh, it's a weak move. Oh, he can't win on his own. And this was essentially his big, all right, middle finger to you. I'm going to go elsewhere and win. So I'm going to leave the best situation in NBA history to do that. And he goes with LeBron's former running mate, who's the reason why LeBron isn't on the Cavaliers today.
Yep.
Because Kyrie essentially destroyed 2 franchises on his way to Brooklyn.
I mean, he did. Without a doubt.
I mean, because the Cavs are the best they've been since, I would say, Mark Price and Brad Daugherty were on the Cavaliers without having LeBron James on the team. Mm-hmm. And then the Celtics the Celtics don't know who they are. No. And what they're going to do. And Kyrie's he leaves a mess in his wake, and Brooklyn is his latest victim. And it's a slow death. It is a slow death right now, but Brooklyn is dying. Honestly, I don't know what's worse, this or that 2013 Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry trade.
Yeah. They're still trying to get over that one, man.
I thought they had, but maybe not.
Maybe not, man. That brings us here to our final segment on the TM Up podcast, and that's our favorite segment, which is Tee 'em up. So we're going to pass out some technical fouls. So Jarrett, who are you teeing up this week?
Well, I'm teeing up one of the guys that was throwing tees last night. I'm throwing up a technical foul to the refs of that Cleveland Cavaliers Charlotte Hornets game. Oh my God. What's it been with refs and sports and whistles and just okay. So there was a clear whistle that blew the play dead. I forget who it was, hit a three wanted to attempt to shoot a 3 from the corner. And Ed Davis, the Cavaliers forward who was sitting on the bench, reached over the boundary line and touched. Oh, it was Terry Rozier who shot the 3 from the corner. So he went over and touched Terry Rozier. The ref, after the play's already blown dead, blows his whistle and then tees up Ed Davis and gives the Hornets the 3 points, even though Terry Rozier missed the practice 3-pointer that you see players do as clockwork after every blown whistle just to get a little extra shot up. Yeah. They gave the Cavs, they called it goaltending, which is ridiculous. And then, of course, technical free throw. Charlotte goes and makes another free throw, and it's just over 4 minutes left in a very close game. This was a 1-point game, but I think it was 103-102, thankfully in the Cavs' favor. Yeah. But essentially, Charlotte got 4 free points for a ref that was incompetent. I have zero tolerance for bad reffing. This is why I'm such a big fan, even though it slows games down, whether it's in the NFL or NBA, of instant replays, because I don't care how long it takes. I want the calls right, because I've been a fan burned too many times by refs that just can't do their job.
Yeah.
So I'm teeing up that ref. I don't care what your name is. I don't care to learn it. I'm teeing you up. I'm not even going to give you the justice of having your name.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's not my technical foul, but kind of going off of what you said when I was watching the Knicks and Lakers game last night, where it sucks because it technically was a foul. I'll give it to him. But when LeBron kind of jumped almost over Julius Randle and at 37 years old has entire forearm above the rim and blocked the shot, to me, I saw a tweet that's like, I don't care if it was a foul. You do not call a foul on LeBron
I saw
James
that one too
when he's doing this. And then when LeBron tried to close out the game in overtime when he had the putback dunk and they called that it was still over the rim. And it's like, man, come on, just let it go. I'm surprised the crowd didn't have a bigger reaction, knowing it's LeBron there playing at home and he's trying to get the win, obviously, over the Knicks, which everybody likes beating the Knicks. But they do. My technical foul I'm giving up is going way back to November 8th. And I know you're thinking, Jace, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about, Jace?
I'm going to go back to a game that happened between the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat on November 8th.
Oh.
You might remember what happened in that game. Nikola Jokic was fouled by Markieff Morris on, looked like kind of a breakaway, and Markieff kind of came up to him and kind of hip checked him a little bit. It was a little bit harder foul. Nikola Jokic then decided to completely charge his 7 foot, I don't even know how many pounds he weighs, frame.
He's a big boy.
Straight at the back of Markieff Morris. That, to me, we didn't talk enough about how dangerous of a play that was. And every week that goes by, to me, I'm reminded a little bit more of it. Markieff Morris has yet to play a game since that instance.
Insane.
He has been suffering from whiplash from being hit by a, I don't even know, 280-pound, 7 foot man charging and hitting him square in the back when he was walking away. Technical foul on Nikola Jokic, because to me, we kind of said, oh, Markieff Morris, because the Morris twins have a little bit of you could say dirty. They got a little bit of that reputation. And up until then, Nikola Jokic hasn't had anything like that. I don't think we talk enough about, because he's an MVP caliber player, what Jokic did in that. That was incredibly dangerous. This man has been suffering from whiplash, hasn't played a single game since he was, in my mind, brutally attacked while walking away. Markieff didn't see it coming. Like, it's one thing to charge at a guy, push him down when you're face to face. Markieff was walking away. He didn't see it coming. Still suffering from whiplash. He said that he's been saying that he's ready to play. The Miami Heat doctors have yet to clear him from his whiplash, so he hasn't been on the court. Jokic was ejected from that game. I believe he was suspended maybe 1 game.
Yeah, I think Morris was suspended too.
Yeah. And according to Miami Herald, Markieff may end up missing the entire rest of the season because of this. Jokic, let's see. Jokic was assessed a flagrant 2 foul, later suspended for 1 game. Morris was fined $50,000.
Oh, he wasn't suspended.
So to me, this is ridiculous. And I don't think we talk about it enough, how brutal of a play that was. You might have done a move just out of anger. And to me, what Morris did wasn't even that bad. It was a hip check. It happens on almost every NBA game. And what Jokic did is completely out of the realm of what you should do as far as retaliation goes. It was ridiculous, and we don't talk about it enough because Jokic is an MVP caliber player. So technical foul for Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, and going off of that, and I just kind of think back to the Grayson Allen play and Alex Caruso. I think there needs to be stricter penalties for these players that, like, Morris has been out 3 months.
3 months.
Almost.
Yeah, 3 months. In 2 days, it'll be 3 months, yes.
Alex Caruso is going to be out 2 months. Mm-hmm. And combined for the 5 months of basketball that's going to be missed by these, potentially more with Morris.
Yeah, Morris could miss the entire year, yeah.
So it could be anywhere from 5 to 8 months of missed basketball between 2 players. There needs to be stricter fines, because between those 8 months, the guys that cause these egregious fouls, 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be stricter penalties when players are missing this amount of time.
No, I agree. And I think we all kind of brushed over what Jokic did. It was kind of a one-off thing, but in my mind, if we're talking about dirty players, that pops up into my head now. In my mind, Jokic attacked a guy from behind after he felt that he was hard fouled, and that could cause a man to suffer from whiplash, which whiplash is not a fun condition to go through, and then could miss the entire season. And for Miami, he was, before he got hurt, he was like the second man off the bench. He was a key player, and we've had to go through the rest of the season without him, in my mind, because of a dirty play by Nikola Jokic. But that's all we have for you guys this week on the TM Up podcast. We want to thank you guys all for listening, joining in, and be sure to follow us along on all of our social media platforms for fun NBA content throughout the week. That's all we have, and thanks you all for listening.
Make sure to share us with your family and friends.